Good evening, welcome to the BBC News at 6. The Energy Secretary Chris Huhne has resigned from the Cabinet after learning that he and his ex-wife will both face charges of perverting the course of justice. It's claimed the Liberal Democrat former minister got his then wife, Vicky Pryce, to accept penalty speeding points on his behalf 10 years ago to escape a driving ban. The accusation only emerged last year, shortly after the couple separated. This morning, Chris Huhne insisted again that he was innocent and said he would fight the charges in court. Our political editor, Nick Robinson, reports.
It began with their marriage breaking up. It could end in prison. Today, Chris Huhne lost his job in the Cabinet. In a fortnight, he and the wife he left, Vicky Pryce, will see each other in court. Today, the man who heads the Crown Prosecution Service gave his verdict on the evidence of an 8-month police investigation.
All the available evidence, including the new material, has now been carefully considered by the CPS, and we have concluded that there is sufficient evidence to bring criminal charges against both Mr. Huhne and Ms. Pryce for perverting the course of justice.
The Prime Minister and his deputy made clear to Chris Huhne that his fight to clear his name would have to be pursued outside the Cabinet.
I'm innocent of these charges and I intend to fight this in the courts, and I'm confident that a jury will agree. So as to avoid any distraction to either my official duties or my trial defence, I am standing down and resigning as Energy and Climate Change Secretary.
It must feel a very long time since Chris Huhne issued these election leaflets, asking where he'd be without his family and telling voters that he'd been married for 26 years. His wife was with him at the count on election night in 2010. There too was the woman he was having an affair with, his media advisor. Huhne would go on to win his seat, but to lose his wife and soon face allegations about who had done what many years before. In 2003, when he was a member of the European Parliament, Huhne flew into Stansted Airport from Brussels. His car was caught by speed cameras on the M11. His wife, Vicky Pryce, received 3 penalty points for the speeding offence. 8 years later, in the aftermath of their acrimonious divorce, the Sunday Times asked Pryce about rumours that Huhne had persuaded somebody to accept speeding points for him. Oh gosh. Yes, he did, she was reported as saying, before pointing out that there's such huge pressure on politicians to be everywhere at once, and he does drive a bit like a maniac. Days later, a Labour MP asked Essex Police to open an investigation. Today, Vicky Pryce posed for the cameras. The woman who used to head the government's economic service issued a written statement saying simply she wanted to see a quick resolution of the case.
I'm sorry, I can't comment on anything. Thank you.
Chris Huhne's absence will be noticed most around the Cabinet table. He was the coalition's most muscular Liberal Democrat, twice staging angry confrontations with the Prime Minister about the treatment of his party as embarrassed colleagues looked on.
Are you sorry to lose Chris Huhne, Mr. Clegg?
Nick Clegg may be sorry, but perhaps a little nervous too. He only just beat Chris Huhne to become his party's leader and knows that if he's cleared, Mr. Huhne could cause real political trouble.
I totally understand and respect why Chris Huhne has stood down from his position in government. If he clears his name as he wishes to, I have made it clear to him that I would like to see him back in government in a key position.
But politics doesn't wait for the slow-turning wheels of justice. Another Liberal Democrat, Ed Davey, is the new Secretary of State for Energy and Climate Change. Chris Huhne did eventually lose his driving licence. He lost his wife and today his cabinet career. Now he's fighting to save not just...
Well, Nick Robinson is at Westminster this evening. Nick, this appears to be a political crisis for Mr. Huhne that has grown out of a personal one.
It is extraordinary. It began so personally, Fiona, then it became political, then it became legal, and if Mr. Huhne cannot convince a court of his innocence, it will end up custodial. Now, he's far from the only person who has a messy, or if you like, an acrimonious divorce. He's far from the only person who then has arguments about who did what when in the past. But being a cabinet minister, it meant that those accusations made their way into the newspapers, into the headlines, and then one of his political opponents took them up and took them to the police. That is what makes this personal crisis for him such an extraordinary one.
And Nick, what are the wider political implications of all this?
Well, there's no doubt that if Chris Huhne were to win his case and prove his innocence, he would become once again a powerful Liberal Democrat figure. No wonder Nick Clegg said that he wanted to see him back in government. The last thing this coalition would want is a revived Mr Huhne on the backbenches, picking a fight over this policy and that. If he loses his case, if he were in the end to end up in prison, there would then be a by-election in his seat, which has long been a Tory Lib Dem marginal, not very helpful for the coalition. But I think it's fair to say that the man who's always loved government will not be thinking about the political tonight. He'll be thinking of the personal. How on earth did I get myself into this mess?
Nick Robinson at Westminster, thank you.